Yep.
Hey, I'm Lou, and that guy,
I'm John. And
this is
this,
a hot take. So let's talk about this. HPE and Juniper are now approved to
that's,
merge.
that's right. So the U.S. Department of Justice has settled its lawsuit to where it was challenging the takeover of Hewlett Packard Enterprise taking over Juniper. This was a $14 billion acquisition. And I think most of us that are, if you're listening to or watching this podcast, you're already aware of what was going on there. But there's some interesting things that came out of this, and we wanted to talk about some of the special rulings that came out of that, what we think that this means for some of the people involved and the products involved, and give you our hot take. So, first of
Interesting
all,
thought, though. Did
yeah, what's up?
HPE take over Juniper? And the question is, maybe, because you
Right.
know who's going to run this whole thing? Current
Yep.
CEO of Juniper,
Correct.
Rami
Correct.
Rahim, if I remember correctly.
Well,
So
before we actually even get into any of this,
let's go.
HPE has a really interesting and I'll say weird track record when it comes to acquisitions, because when they acquired Aruba, basically Aruba took over,
Yeah, they did. I
and
actually
now
was
they're
there at the
acquiring
time.
Juniper, and Juniper's taken over. So, and I want to qualify this before we get started. And I'm looking through my notes, and when we get to the people section, I actually have a note in there that both Lou and I have friends working at both companies. Well, now it's one company, but we're working
Both
at both
both
companies,
sides, yeah.
and I see some turbulence coming, and I feel for anybody impacted by any of that turbulence, whatever that turbulence means. We'll talk about that because we've been through acquisitions like this, and so we're not going to really make light of that. We're just going to kind of make our predictions on that. So, but anyway, let's get into it. So, first of all, I wanted to talk about, as part of this ruling, there were like two special rulings that came out of it.
Two big things, yes.
And honestly, I feel that this was just the Department of Justice saying, well, we spent all this time and money holding this up, and we had to do something. We had to come out with some sort of evidence that we actually did our job to some degree. I don't really feel that one's more impactful than the other. The least impactful, I believe, is that HPE has to sell off their Aruba Instant On line of products. Now, this, for some people that don't know, is their low end kind of prosumer Soho level of networking equipment. It's these, call it maybe Ubiquity or lower TP-Link level gear for the prosumer home, home IT geek, maybe your small office level
To
management
me,
suite.
it looked clear that this was designed to compete with Ubiquity.
I
But
believe so, but I have looked at it. I don't feel that it was anywhere near as complete as the Ubiquity product line.
it isn't. And they may be relieved by getting rid of this, because
Yeah,
one of the things John and I were talking about is I was looking at their switching line and their AP line, and it's like a certain amount of capability they'll go up to, and then they stop, right?
right,
Because they don't want to impinge on the Aruba lines.
right. Now,
So
these are low cost, so I
great
actually feel that
price.
this is an opportunity for somebody, maybe somebody that doesn't have a big presence at all. So a lot of the articles were saying that this would be a good opportunity for somebody else. Let's just say maybe an Extreme Networks that doesn't have a low end product line. I actually think that would be a bad call. I don't think Extreme would do it because Extreme already tried that once. But somebody that maybe not with a huge networking presence that wants to get into that low end market to compete directly with Ubiquity, because Ubiquity is really alone in that market right now. And maybe somebody that wants to put some effort into it and really put in a real competitor, because there are a few people out there that have kind of a bad taste in their mouth for some things that have happened in the past with some security issues and such with Ubiquity, which I think really to some degree maybe weren't their fault. Maybe they were. You can debate that. This might be an opportunity to really put in another tier competitor at that level. I think that could be really interesting. We'll see what happens with it. They've got 180 days to sell it off. We'll see if that goes. But what's more interesting is that they have to license out Juniper's AI ops for Mist. So this is the orchestration tools that come along with Mist. And that gets really interesting because to some degree, that was part of the secret sauce that I think that HPE was looking to get from Juniper. And they now have to license that out. A lot of that code, without having people, it'd be really difficult to know what to do with that code. And that's what goes along with this licensing is you actually get the code, you can make changes to it, and because you'd have to in order to integrate it into your own environment. You get people. And so there's a certain number of people that have to get transferred from the Juniper side, specifically the Juniper side, they have to be familiar with the code, over to the new company, whoever licenses it. And it's going to be a auction. It's going to be a bid, and it's the highest bidder that gets the license and then gets the code. Now, there are certain thresholds, and if you get multiple bidders and they go over the threshold, the highest bidder gets the people in the license, and then anybody else over that threshold also gets a license. So you could actually have multiple licensees. So that's going to get really interesting to see what happens there if we end up with multiple licensees of the AI Mist. Now, Lou and I were talking about this pre-show, and with the rapid advances in AI, how much of an advantage does Mist have today? Like how far ahead are they? Are they a year ahead? Are they 5 years ahead? Are they 6 months ahead? And is there really that much advantage to that code? And is that worth $8 million? Is it worth $20 million? Is it really not worth?
And the question is, who's going to bid on this? Because the reason that this is being implemented is that between Aruba, their wireless market share, and Juniper Mist's market share, combined with Cisco, we now have two companies, HPE merged, Cisco, that controls 70% of the enterprise wireless market.
The interesting thing is anybody going to bid on the Mist AI stuff, and what's going to happen with that? So
somebody will, but if they poll those crucial people,
will it be crucial people? Because Juniper gets to decide who those people are. So,
but the question is Juniper deciding or is Aruba deciding? This is very political.
It's going to get political, and that's going to be what we talk about next. Is the people. So let's
go into the people. Yeah.
So one of the things that's going to happen, and this is again where we're not going to make light of this, is there absolutely will be layoffs as part of this. Every time there's a big merger of this type, an acquisition merger, there will be layoffs. There's definitely overlap in certain functions. We know there's going to be overlap in finance, in HR, in sales, in a bunch of different areas.
There's going to be overlap in engineering.
In engineering and other areas.
Yeah.
So Lou and I have gone through this a bunch of different times. We were at Extreme Networks, and Extreme Networks in our time there made 7 different acquisitions. And I came into Extreme through an acquisition. And so in every single case, it was followed by some cuts. Either that they made cuts as part of the acquisition from the other company and then just acquired a few people, or they made cuts afterwards from both sides of the equation. So that's going to happen. And again, we have friends at both sides, so we're not trying to make light of it.
And another thing is both companies. This was announced 2 years ago?
Yeah, a little less than that, but
a little less than 2 years ago. This acquisition was announced. Both companies started bulking up after that announcement.
Correct.
And I know this because I interviewed.
Yeah.
And these guys were all trying to, it was a winner take all competition. So now the question is, and so folks out there who are getting impacted by this, holy crap. This sucks.
Yeah, and so hopefully, there's a lot of money at play here. Like we said, it was a $14 billion acquisition. So hopefully money was put aside for really generous packages, and that anybody impacted does get a new gig ASAP. So best thoughts. But the other thing that comes along with acquisitions is strife. People form camps. And what we saw every single time that there was an acquisition at Extreme is that it was an us versus them. And as we went through it, every single time we started to try to get better at avoiding the us versus them, but it still happened. And usually it started with the new company coming in as we realized that the us versus them was going to happen. We tried to do the whole kumbaya thing. We're all one. but there was always somebody that was like, no, our stuff's better. You acquired us because you needed us, or somebody on the inside saying, no, we didn't need you. We just acquired you because you were on sale or whatever it was. And there's going to be some way that people get labeled, and we saw lots of labels. At Extreme's color was purple, so there was purple people and red people, or there was different ways of labeling people. So you're going to see
and
that.
People literally said it that way.
Literally said it that way. Purple people and red people. Yes. And so there's going to be different camps, and that's going to be really ugly. And it's like a level of bigotry. I actually started referring to it as a level of bigotry, is like, and I had people point at me. I was like, you people from that side don't understand. And, it got really, really ugly. So anybody from those, either the HPE side or Juniper that are listening, do everything you can to avoid that. There's a lot of things that you guys can do really well together. Try not to form those camps.
So every chance you get to deconflict this, absolutely do. And if you are a customer of either side of these companies, you need to watch for this.
100%.
To make sure that your stuff continues to operate.
Now, speaking of the customers, let's talk about what we think is going to happen with the products, because obviously there's an immense amount of overlap between the product lines. So, Lou, if you're looking at the same notes I am, what I've put together is a grid, and I've got an HPE column, and I've got a Juniper column, and the competitive side of where they are. So let's start with switching here. I think that's pretty straightforward, that at the end of the day, Juniper's got a much more robust and feature complete switching line. The HPE networking line is really the Aruba stack. And
it was always sort of an also ran to the Wi-Fi.
Correct.
My experience.
Aruba was a Wi-Fi company that had to have switching just to be able to power the APs.
And the thing is that while folks have various opinions of Junos, I was at Juniper when the EX series switches launched.
Yeah.
The problem with Junos is it is built for algorithmic deployment, right? Yeah. So you don't type in a command and it goes. You work on a candidate configuration and then you commit it. And that is very service provider oriented and very automation oriented. And it's a serious pain in the butt if you're just trying to fix something in a campus. Yeah. So that has been my experience. I've talked to other people about it. Some people love it. Some people hate it. My feeling on this is that it's ultimately going to win when somebody gets the right AI in there.
Well, so the thing is that what I haven't done is use the Mist orchestrator to configure and use the switches. So hopefully that would have made that
yeah,
easier,
we'll see. Yeah.
So
but I still think you're right. It's going to be the EX. The thing is, there's no reason why it might not be both. They might be able to, like, remember our example of Extreme. You can run Fabric on one side, you can run Exos on the other.
Well, so for some period of time, all of these product lines are going to have to coexist, because you can't just immediately cut them off. So that's going to be the first thing I want to say, is that you can't immediately cut it off, because then you're going to have customers that are going to then say, well, you killed the product line that I'm using, so now I have to go out and look at everything that's out there and so forth. So there's going to be a period of time where they'll need to support it.
I won't be at all shocked to see a strategy like other companies have done there, especially since the hardware is probably nearly identical.
All right, so now let's move on to the routing side of the equation. Juniper's got to win that. Juniper,
that is their bread and butter, and they do it very, very well.
Yeah.
TX, MX series, Aruba's got nothing on that.
Yeah,
they do big iron really well.
Yeah, and I think we'll lump data center into that as well. Is routing?
I would agree. They have a really, really good, really complete vision for data center systems. Now, wireless is the question mark.
Wireless is now a lot of the reporting out there, a lot of the feelings out there is that Mist is the winner. I think it's interesting is that, Aruba, that's what they were. And they were one of the leaders in wireless. I think that what you might see is a hybrid play here. I think that you may see a lot of this, because at the end of the day, Mist wasn't about its wireless. It was about its management and the AI around the management. And again, going back to our experience at Extreme, that's what, when they acquired Aerohive, it was about the management more than the access points. Matter of fact, the access points from Aerohive were fairly generic. It was, but there was some really kind of cool special sauce on the access points that Extreme had that had come in from the terraces. So those actually work really well together. Once you put the Aerohive management, what's Extreme Cloud IQ today, on top of the Extreme access points, you actually ended up with something pretty positive. I think that's what you're going to see here.
But I think the wild card here is that auctioning off of the AI ops piece, because they're going to need to get that money for this thing. They're going to have to give them enough people to make it work.
Yeah.
That's why I've got a big question mark floating over my head.
But they're not going to stop using it. So
they might.
Well, that's a dollar bet.
They might, because I think what they're going to do is try to evolve a next generation based on that, because right now they just lost their exclusivity. The Mist.
Well, they're definitely going to be working on the next thing. So I'll grant you that. But Mist is their bread and butter. Everything is now Mist branded inside of Juniper. There's no way.
But they're going to lose some of their crucial people.
Yeah,
they lose the exclusivity to that code.
They do.
So now,
one note on that I will throw out there is that I didn't mention before is that the company that buys them does not get the branding for Mist, so they can't. So let's say, it's not going to be Cisco, but let's just say Cisco. Cisco won't be able to say Cisco powered by Mist.
No, they'll have to say AI operations,
right,
or something like that. And we don't even know if they can say that. But I would just like to say at this point, I don't know who won this one, but somebody has to win. There has to be a unified vision that takes this.
Well, I'm calling this a hybrid. I'm calling this Aruba hardware and firmware with Mist.
You and I have been through this before.
We have.
It didn't work out real well.
All right, so now let's move on to SD-WAN, SASE, that area. I think that this is another one that I think would be really interesting. I feel. Go ahead. I'll let you go first.
Juniper.
I don't know.
They have a better security picture.
Okay, but on the SD-WAN side, Silver Peak was definitely a leader in the SD-WAN space, and HPE acquired Silver Peak. So from the security side, I think it'll be Juniper. From the SD-WAN orchestration side, I think it'll be Silver Peak from HPE.
Well, that could be the choice. The next choice is the difference between SD-WAN implementations is not huge.
Right.
They all work basically in very similar ways. The real expensive part in doing this stuff is arranging the orchestration, so that you would have a single backhaul network, a single communications and discovery. I think this one's going to be a lot easier to merge.
It might be. I think a lot of those protocols are very unique, though. So having spent some time in the
that's true.
What was WAN op space, and then became SD-WAN protocols and how they handle the data. I think you'll see what used to be Silver Peak. Now I think they call it the SaaS Edge Connect. I think that's going to be there, but I think from the security standpoint, I think you're right that'll be Juniper.
Which definitely takes us on to the next piece, which is security SaaS elements integration. Gateways, ClearPass, firewall overlays, all that stuff. The SRX series, and those of us who survived the initial years of the SRX are kind of wincing at this. But we all know that the wrong operating system won there. It should have been Screen OS. NetScreen was the acquisition that Juniper made. It was much tighter, much more fuller featured. But it didn't, and that's the way it is. But I think Juniper probably has a better security story as far as the heritage and the people they have around. They've got mega scale, they've got software, they've got They've got orchestration networks for data center with all this stuff built into it. That one seems like a slam dunk to me. Be interested to hear what you guys think.
Yeah. So on that note, that is going to cover this episode, and we couldn't do this podcast without listeners like you. We do want to hear what you think. Did we get it wrong? Do you think that there's going to be a completely different way that these two companies are going to come together? Do you think that maybe we got it wrong on the types of products that are going to survive? Maybe both product lines will continue forward for years and years and years. Maybe we were completely off base. Maybe you got inside knowledge. Maybe you just have a different prediction. Please let us know. Send email to feedback@itsparkcast.com. Hit us up on X @itsparkcast. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave a comment down below. We read every bit of feedback that we get, every comment that we get. We do read all of them and respond to most. If it's particularly insightful, we'll read them out on our Friday News Bite episodes, and you'll get to hear your name mentioned there. Be sure to hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications. That way you never miss an episode. So with that, from the world of enterprise IT, take care.
See you later.